Last time, we discussed the origins of Misilleeka, her journey from attending to one of Celestia's military schools, succeeding in leading her crew in a mission on Jolkar, and Deatra's homeworld from the Djinn. Seems like a legit hero. Until now. Hello everyone, Obscure Titan here with another essay video. Last time we discussed Misilleeka's adventures as a former follower of Sakarak. Despite everything she's done to benefit Crystal Celestia, Sakarak still holds contempt towards her. The pressure seems like it's still going, even several years later after the Sukrami Djinn Invasion. Just a recap from last time, Misilleeka was the daughter of Magmatora and Levigrak, the former being a dragon mother and the latter being a humanoid seraphim father, who grew up as a warrior in a celestial military regime to prove herself. Not only has she succeeded in graduating from the school, she also helped fight off otherworldly threats in other planets. Near the end of episode 1, Misilleeka befriends a princess named Deatra. After her father sadly died at the hands of the Dark Djinn, and Zolkar killing the Djinn with his salt-coated sword, Deatra had no other place to be safe due to frequent Djinn activities. Misilleeka took her and the Sukrami people to Crystal Celestia, and thus, Episode 2 begins. 3,000 years after the Djinn incident, Misilleeka and Deatra stroll across Crystal Celestia. One thing Misilleeka wasn't sure of is how Deatra's appearance hasn't changed at all, questioning her status as a half-genie. Deatra says she wasn't sure of it, implying that Jarkak never told her about it at all. Suddenly, a Seraphim soldier approaches them. He informs Deatra and Misilleeka that Levigrak is going to Nexus Netherworld to take down Overlord Degilax. She asked if her father needed assistance, and said no. It was declared by Sakarak for him to go alone. Growing dubious of the claim, Misilleeka, having suspicions of Sakarak doing something bad, decides to search for him before departure. But not before Deatra argued about getting into trouble, only ending with them going together, implying that Deatra would regulate Misilleeka to keep her in check. Flying through planes and structures throughout Crystal Celestia, Misilleeka and Deatra found Levigrak and tried to reason with him over the issue. He tells her it's something he needs to do alone, despite Misilleeka's doubts. This ended with her storming off, enraged and worried. Moments after Levigrak shuts his ship's door, Misilleeka turned and sprinted towards its storage door. Deatra followed and went in time before takeoff. As the ship flies out in the open, Levigrak, with Misilleeka and Deatra secretly hiding inside, headed towards Nexus Netherworld, unaware of the results that could come. Moments after, Levigrak's ship arrives to Nexus Netherworld. The Seraph warrior left his ship inside a cavern, and in turn, allowing Misilleeka and Deatra to quietly follow him. Both maidens make their way into Nexus Netherworld's castle by hiding inside a giant cauldron of crystal energy as Nexus Door and I stroll through. Once inside, Misilleeka and Deatra get through the hallways without getting caught, but as Levigrak's voice echoed yelling Degilax's name, she rushed through the halls in hopes of finding her father. But as she got into the chamber, it was too late. Levigrak's legs were ripped off and tossed into the floor like a rag doll. This is where Overlord Degilax comes in, a massive and powerful warlord. Enraged by this, Misilleeka proceeds towards the Overlord in retribution, scratching and tearing his face. As she kept fighting, Degilax sweeps her out of the way. Knowing Levigrak's critical condition, she and Deatra carry him out of the castle before any of the Overlord's minions could stop them. Following the horrific event of Degilax bludgeoned Misilleeka's father, she visited a hospital where Levigrak is held in a room. Desperate to find him, she and Deatra did. His right leg and wings were cut off due to being ravaged beyond repair. 3 holes on his chest were covered. He looked as if he was a mummy, a mummified angel at that. Misilleeka was in tears over her father's condition. They talked, reflecting on everything that took place prior to his fatal wounds. In every statement Misilleeka makes, Levigrak replies and asks. The more volatile her reaction got, the calmer Levigrak tried to be, reasoning his daughter. But as Misilleeka was getting desperate over the situation, Levigrak suggests that either she'll just accept Sakarak as it is, or fight to change it. Just moments before he died, with Misilleeka holding his hands tightly, he asked her to be the leader of Crystal Celestia. Not the place, object, nor blood, but by the heart. And at this moment, he died. What follows is Misilleeka storming off the hospital, with Deatra and her allies following her. As she heads outside, Sakura passes her by. He calls out to her, insulting her, but as soon as he tried getting closer to her, Misilleeka smacks her tail out of the way. Enraged, she threatened that Sakura will lose authority, one way or another, and all who matter to her will be avenged. Misilleeka takes it upon herself to start a retaliation against Sakura, disappearing into the clouds alongside Deatra and Zolkar. Inside a dark chamber, Misilleeka rallies up a good chunk of the members into her rebellion: Seraphim, dragons, rings, and the Sukrami folk. Many of them watched her make a speech. She declares that Sakura's reign has plagued their society. His incompetence and disdain cost them their dignity and have lived in failure. And soon, Misilleeka will redeem Crystal Celestia by starting a war on him, assuring her allies that their victory will earn them a new beginning. Misilleeka plans to poison her former master and allow her team to bring carnage to the realm. Once Misilleeka has the plan set in motion, she heads towards Sakura's capital, only to be stopped by Deatra for a minute. She asked if she could come with her, but was told to stay with Jigra and Zolkar to station themselves in weaker areas where troops can be easily exploited. In her loincloth, she has a potion which can be used to kill Sakura. This changes as Misilleeka decides to let Deatra participate in Sakura's downfall by having her and Zolkar advance through the building as she plans to go up to the top. Once she made her way up to the top, Misilleeka tapped on the window to talk to Sakura, begging him to let her in over an urgent matter. He begrudgingly welcomes her inside and does so. Once inside, Misilleeka makes an apology for her rebellious behavior, implying that she's the same about Levigrag's passing. Touched by her sincere apology, Sakura accepted it and offered her a drink. This was an opportunity to set up the betrayal. Misilleeka went over to the service table and took the potion in her fingers. Pouring it into one cup, she puts it away and hands the drink to Sakura. Not showing any signs of doubt, Sakura's blinded blissfulness sealed his fate. Once he drank it, things were looking fine. For a moment. As it passed, Sakura's stomach began to gurgle. Kneeling down in fatigue, his body was beginning to deteriorate. Revealing her betrayal, Misilleeka scorned Sakura as she's taken the time to reflect on their fragmented relationship. Discrediting her performance, despite being admired by many of her peers, and even discriminating her family. Enraged by this deceptive act, Sakura accuses Misilleeka of treachery. This resulted to his body becoming so pale and weak, he couldn't take it anymore. She kicked his head down and broke through his frail body. Moments later, the poison turned his ashes into flakes, and bones breaking into pieces. Sakura was no more. After Sakura died, Zolkar and Deatra make their way into the room and all fled towards the exit of the building. But the destruction has already begun. Tiles, pillars, and pieces of debris were crumbling before them. Desperate, Deatra performed a spell by accidentally kicking her left foot and created a smoky tail within her legs. A genie tail. Her ignited genie tail zoomed out of the building in seconds. Deatra's hidden pure genie magic left Misilleeka and Zolkar completely shocked. Embarrassed by this, Deatra tried to explain and avoid the questions, but Misilleeka assured her that their main focus is dismantling Sakura's name across Crystal Celestia by destroying the realm itself. Crystal Celestia is left in ruins. Towers crumbled, flames slithering throughout the land, and its once starry skies now darkened in smoke. Misilleeka declared freedom from Sakura's reign. Soon after, an old, weary voice cried out to her, calling her name. Turning around, it was Magmatora, her dragon mother. She tells her mother about this accomplishment, saying that she fulfilled her promise by putting Sakura's reign to an end. What follows next is Magmatora asking her what she has done, and in a sad, disappointed tone. This left Misilleeka in complete shock. She tried to justify this as if it were an act of honor, only to be rebutted as an act of terrorism, even going so far as saying she was supposed to unite people, not divide them. Misilleeka becomes more upset by her mother's criticism, threatening to kill her without a second thought. Despite her big, animalistic form, Magmatora comes off as gentle and defenseless, allowing her daughter to kill her, or spare her. She chose the latter. Instead of doing the deed, Misilleeka leaves her mother, forsaking her family for not seeing the things that she sees, holding the values that she holds. In an act of hatred, Misilleeka turns her attention to Nexus Netherworld as her new home base. In order to take it, she needed to kill the one who leads it, and the fabricator of her father's demise, Overlord Degilax. Following the events of Crystal Celestia's downfall, Misilleeka leads an enormous armada of seraphim, dragons, rings, and Sochromai folk. Their goal? Take over Nexus Netherworld. With Crystal Celestia literally destroyed, there's nothing to make it their home. So Nexus Netherworld, having a huge supply of energy for itself and others, is a rational decision to take over. Misilleeka takes another potion and uses it to kill and poison Overlord Degilax. With it in her hands, she makes her way into the palace. Flying across the darkened skies, she makes her way inside it. While she ran into a guard, she killed him and another as he stepped in. Successful in her infiltration to the building, Misilleeka crawls through the fog and the hallways as she is preparing to strike Overlord Degilax, making a bold move to dip the deadly poison onto her tail's claw. She strikes it through his back, as if a butcher knife was dug into a bowl with a sizzling burn from the poison. Collapsing to his knees, Misilleeka got the chance to defeat the Dark Lord. With Overlord Degilax struck down, Misilleeka looks down on him, mocking him at every opportunity he tried to on her. She declared that Crystal Celestia, one of Sycorax and not hers, is in shambles, and wishes to make Nexus Netherworld the epicenter of the world she desires to be her home's representation. Despite him coming to terms with Misilleeka's cunning, he too warned her of future enemies that will overthrow her. As his body decayed from the poison, Overlord Degilax dies. The majority of this act focuses on Misilleeka slaughtering as much of Degilax's minions as she could. With more being taken out, the more powerful her regime becomes. This episode ends with Misilleeka finding a soldier who called himself Suvunikua. The name itself inspired Misilleeka to create her native language, trademark, and battle cry, one that will immortalize her regime. She scratches onto a pillar nearby with one at the bottom, another in the middle, longer than the former, and the last one shorter, adding one more to connect the two former lines, which is the insignia that you're seeing on the screen. This marked the beginning of Misilleeka's reformed militia, no longer under a totalitarian control, but by another, with her own way of operation and tactics and conquest. Misilleeka is no longer the paragon of heroism in Crystal Celestia. She is an overlord of her own warmongering ambition. Episode 2 takes a nosedive in the tone of this miniseries, in a good way. But however you look at it, Misilleeka took this opportunity to make a new beginning. The amount of people who looked up to her, the companions who fought alongside her, and a friend whom she saved years ago. Misilleeka is slowly shifting from her former innocence into a tyrannical warlord. This amount of power can only do so much, as the road to hell itself can be done by good intentions. Next episode will be Misilleeka's post-revolutionary era, and individual storylines involving her allies. And yes, this involves Sleeka. This is Obscure Titan saying thanks for watching, feel free to subscribe, and I'll catch you next time. Over and out.